Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of WTBI. What's the Big Idea? A talk plus show for audacious visionaries. It's a pleasure to be alive and breathing today and here virtually with everyone who may be in real time checking this out with us live, or for those of you who will be watching in some future on the recording. It's nice to be with you, whatever that means as well. And I am excited today to have a fabulous co-dreamer, Sydnie Mosley, joining me for today's show. So I'm going to bring Sydnie on in so that introductions can unfold and we can get this party started. Sydnie.
Hi.
Hey, girl. Hey.
Hey.
How are you doing?
I am excellent. Doing really well. The sun is shining today. Spring is like springing. Spring is springing. It's still cold, but spring is springing.
And I know you're in New York.
Mm-hmm.
Where in New York are you?
I'm in Harlem.
Oh,
I'm in
Harlem. All right.
East Harlem. Yeah, I've been here. This is home. I've been in this particular home abode for going on 11 years.
Oh, snap. Okay.
Yeah, this is home.
Okay. All right.
For real. Yeah.
That's new info. Well,
Yeah.
Sydnie, what would you like to share with folks? There is information about you and your work in the YouTube video description, but what do you want to share with folks today, right now? What are you bringing in terms of who you are and what you do that you'd like to share with folks?
Yeah. I am Sydnie Liana Mosley, if you ever wondered what the L stands for. And I, in the work world, identify as a dancer, choreographer, educator, advocate. And in the whole person world, I am a friend and a sister and a daughter and a niece and an auntie and a cousin. I am originally from Baltimore, Maryland, born and raised. Both sides of my family, we're Baltimore through and through, and came to New York as a college student and have made home here ever since. And I actually realized the other day that I'm going on almost 18 years in New York. And so I know. So New York is literally just as much home as Baltimore is, as literally half my life has been spent in each place. And today I'm just bringing, I think, an open heart and excitement to just like chat with you because I love you so much. And yeah, that's what's going on over here.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, I didn't know you've been in New York that long and in this particular spot for so long. That is a level of commitment to place, intentional or otherwise, that I feel is rare among people of our age.
Yeah, I find myself to be a rarity.
In so many ways.
You are correct.
Yes. Okay, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. I have this metaphor for myself as a potted plant. It's like I carry the soil from my home place of Georgia with me wherever I go. And whether I plant myself in a place or not is a question. There could be like a literal put the pot in the soil, cover it up, but there's always a pot. I can pick it up and take it wherever I need to go. So yeah, a little, not quite a tumbleweed, I'd say, but my level of commitment to place has always been a little contingent. So
yeah, and I'm a full out tree.
You and Danae Hannah identify as trees. Now I know.
Well, our birthdays are only 2 days apart.
That makes sense. That makes sense. That makes sense to me. Oh, yay. Well, it's so beautiful to be here with you, Sydnie. I would love to know, for our pleasure show and tell portion of the show, what is bringing you pleasure in and around you today?
Um, Various things. So, one is my T-shirt that you asked about, which says Gender Amplified, which is an organization founded by my sister friend Ebony Smith, and
Mm,
it is an organization that advocates for women in music production, and is amazing in that. And she is an amazing music producer. It is also my earrings, as you'll see. They say boss on them. And these are actually a hand me down from our mutual sister friend, Ebony Noel Golden.
I thought those looked familiar.
And
Yes.
she gave them to me when we were hanging out this summer. And she's like, I think these were meant for you. And I was like, I
Yes.
think they were. And so, they make me feel like a boss. So I like to wear them. And then a third thing is my cup of lavender tea that
Mm.
is steeping over here. Um, it's a lavender sleepy time tea, which does not make me sleep. It makes me actually very energized. It brings me joy. Like I sip it and I'm like,
Okay.
so that is the thing that, and it's nice and warm and it smells really good. It's got some honey in it, and yeah.
Your rarities are just blossoming in front of me today.
Yes,
Lavender wakes you up. Okay. All right. Gives you that zing.
it does.
I love it. I love it. That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing.
Thank
Um, my pleasure is I love this. I like stripes. I don't wear them as often as I used to. When I was in my like nonprofit corporate drag, I had a lot of pinstripes. That was sort of my thing.
Yes, drag.
It was. I can't remember who offered corporate drag to me as a way of understanding what we were all engaged in at the time. I was like, oh, that is certainly what this is. So I don't have many clothing items now that have stripes, but I really like this one and I like the colors a lot. Um, and I also have on an earring that I like. It's a paper mache earring, so that's like very lightweight and still voluminous. Takes up a lot of space. I like a dangle, but sometimes the weight is a little too much.
Mm-hmm.
So I really like this one. I, as usual, have my kidney and liver detoxing tea. It's good for my post first meal. Um, I don't know. What is it? Digestif, kind of.
Steve, yes. Please,
Um,
come on.
and my Bantu knots. I'm feeling my Bantu knots. I don't. This is not a thing I do, but thank you, Selma Elamine, for hooking me up. It's nice to have your stylist in your pod. That's all I
I
have to say. It is
mean,
a blessing. Praise the Lord. Praise the Lord. I'm grateful. I'm grateful to Selma. Mm. So those are some of the things. And I took a beautiful walk with my friend this morning, and it brought me a lot of pleasure, which I am carrying into this moment. Beautiful conversation with Angela Davis Johnson. I don't know if you've met Angela. She's also worked with Ebony. Beautiful spirit, absolutely fabulous. So I'm feeling good. Do you have you shared a little bit of intentionality, I would say, at the beginning about sort of being present, enjoying this conversation. Are there hello plane. Are there any other intentions you have for our time together?
I think just to be present, to just be fully here with you, and by extension, all of the people that might come share space with us digitally in the future. That's it.
Word, word. I have a similar intention, which is my consistent intention for these conversations.
Mm-hmm.
Sweet. Well, all right. I know that you have something that has at least been on your heart in the last 24 hours because you put it on Facebook and we're like, Ron, get ready, basically. So for everyone who's watching the show, there's a portion of the show where me and my co-dreamer are invited to vent, to air our grievances, to purge, and to express what needs to be expressed so that we can free up our bodies for the work of dreaming and visioning. I believe this is a helpful practice to make somatic and energetic space to clear our vessels for the work of dreaming and visioning, which for me is largely about channeling. So that is the purpose and intention for this portion of the show. And the way it works is Sydnie will get 2 minutes. I'll set a timer. And then when Sydnie is done saying whatever Sydnie needs to say, we are going to take 3 deep breaths. We're going to focus on an exhale together to continue to release what needs to be released. I'll set the timer. I'll do the same thing, 2 minutes of venting, 3 breaths, focusing on that exhale. And then we'll move into the dream space, which is the core of the show. Sydnie, does that sound all right to you?
That sounds beautiful.
All right. I am going to get this timer going. Thank you, phone. All right. And tell me when you're ready.
I'm ready.
And your time starts now.
So I get really frustrated when on social media, or it's mostly on social media, I see people returning to in-person activities in our COVID era, in particular, in-person art activities, dancing, dance classes, etc., etc. And there is no disclaimer or announcement about the safety precautions that are taken in order to make that happen. And so last night I was prompted because I saw a social media post of someone who was teaching a dance class in a studio in New York City. And people had masks on, but that's it. And it was clearly like an open class. It wasn't like, this is my pod of artists that I'm working with. And I went to the studio's website. I saw nothing on the homepage about this is what our COVID safety precautions are. This is what we're doing, da, 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 da. And I did eventually find it, but only because I was looking for it. And I'm sorry, but it's not time yet, right? Like, I have to just say, you know, the biggest issue is just because you can do it like legally does not mean it's actually safe. And I feel, especially as dancers, movement practitioners, body people, we have to have care for not only our own bodies, but the other bodies that we're convening. And I'm sorry, dance studio shouldn't be open. Just stop it. And if you are going to open, be really clear about how you're caring for people. You have to be. It's not an option. It's a requirement. That's
okay. Heard and appreciated.
Yeah.
Thank you. Let's exhale. All right. So let's find ourselves comfortably wherever we are.
Yeah, I'm gonna close.
Appreciating what you shared, appreciating the wisdom and truth that you are speaking. And we're gonna inhale together. And exhale. Inhaling. And exhaling. Inhaling one more time. And releasing. All right. Okay, let's see what I got to say. Here we go.
I'm listening.
Oh, timer didn't come on. Okay. Ooh, I am riffing off of what you expressed. I am concerned about normalcy, the specter of normalcy that is shining so brightly on our collective horizon. And it is, I believe, out to kill us. Like that, seriously. That it is actually the wrong, that light on the hill is the wrong hill and the wrong light. No. Fuck that. No. Just no, no, no. No. And have we learned nothing? My answer is we have not learned. My grandfather, bless his soul, Herman Cicero Reagan Sr., who is alive and kicking at the age of almost 93, when I was a child, had this Socratic method with me. Every day after school, he would ask me some grand question. But one of the things that I have taken with me was he would ask me, so what does it mean to learn something? I was like 10. This is welcome to how I am who I am. My grandfather said, how do you know you learned something? And he would listen to me intently and he would say, I believe that learning is indicated by a change in behavior. So I just don't think we've learned anything. And this virus is not here to do just nothing. It's here to teach us lessons, and I don't think we're learning them. And the lesson is about care. And we don't know how to do that. And we have not figured it out, and it's not systemic, and I'm over my time and I'm stopping now. Okay.
But you're right though. Uh-huh. Yes.
Okay.
Let's breathe.
Let's exhale. Inhaling and exhaling. Inhaling and exhaling. One last inhale and releasing. Okay. I want to say aloud the radical act of Black people breathing audibly in public is real. It's so real. Waiting to exhale is so real. That title and the work itself, just the title as a Black thing is so real. Every time I'm on this show and I have a person who is Black as my co-dreamer and we exhale together, I feel like there is a brilliant, beautiful, liberatory magic at work. Just be like, we're going to take up space just breathing.
So, my most recent dance is about this. This is a dance that I am making.
No, I don't. Speak on it, please.
The piece is called Purple, and it opens with a 10-minute breath symphony.
Mm-hmm.
So when the audience comes into the space, as the lights come up, they see 11 people on stage breathing. Mm-hmm. And we're essentially just asking the audience to sit with us and breathe for an extended amount of time before we even think about further action. And it is grounding, it is magical, and as you just said, it is radical, especially for the Black and brown bodies who are leading that. And breathing has been, breathing intentionally, breathing mindfully, has been something that is really useful for me, who tends to have kind of knee-jerk reactions, as a person who, on a first impulse, just wants to cuss somebody out often when they piss me
Baltimore.
Yes, correct. Also, Baltimore, and also I'm Sydnie Mosley's child, my father, and he, that is also his operating mode. And so I offer breath. I lean into breath as a space to. Sometimes people need to get cussed out, but not.
They do.
Most times they don't, or maybe they do, and just trying to be the better person. I'm trying to be the more healed and evolved human in this situation, and so I breathe.
Ashe.
Ashe.
I'm not a curse a motherfucker out kind of person, but I will curse around. I'll curse an ideology out. I will curse a system out.
Mm-hmm.
I will curse out abstractions that manifest material violence in the world. I'll curse all of that shit. I'll curse it to the end of my days, I'm sure. But I'm reticent to do that with people. But with systems, I am full on foul mouthed, unabashedly decrying. The only thing that I really catch myself with is there are very few curse words that aren't racialized or gendered in their cursing. You know what I mean? Like the slight is usually gendered or racialized in some way, at least historically, even if we don't recall the origin stories of said curse words. So that's where I catch myself. I'm like, there are only certain curse words that I use. Like I'll use shit all the time. That's bullshit, shit. And it's like, yeah, it's wasteful. It needs to be removed. It's not something that we need to be interacting with on a regular basis. It's bad for our health, regardless of where the shit comes from. The point is, it don't need to be in or around us. There's a specific location and purpose for that, and it is not in our presence all the time. Shit, very useful. Very useful. But, you know, other ones I'm a little bit like, okay, Ron, maybe you need to find another way to say this. But the things that aren't actually like popular in circulation curse words, they just don't hit the same. They just don't have that to them. And I need the
You need the
So I don't know. I would love to like have a creative project of like, what does it mean to curse something in ways that aren't about sexism and misogyny and racism? Can we find those? Can that be an artistic project? It needs to hit right though.
Yes.
It needs to.
Yes. Correct.
I offer that to any artist so interested.
I'm literally tearing up right now because I have so much joy in my soul about this. Okay. I'm gonna make it. I promise you I will.
All right. This is why we have tea. Most of my guests and co-dreamers on this show have tea because it's something that we got to sip about on every episode at least once.
Oh God. Okay. I'm ready. I'm here. I'm present.
Let it out. Let it out. I say let it out. Oh, mercy. Mercy on all of our souls.
Okay. Woo.
Also beautiful thing. Black joy, black laughter. That's why we're here. That's why we're here.
Okay. Okay, I can keep laughing forever.
Okay. All right. Well, okay. Here we go. So we are right in time, and Sydnie, I want to shift into the dreaming space.
Yes.
Explicitly, because we are always dreaming, I believe. But I want to know. I would love to get some insights into what you are dreaming about, envisioning for our collective future. What's on your heart? What's on your spirit?
There's so many things. And I think kind of leaning into this conversation that we've been having for the past couple of days about resource generation and the labor of that. And I think my dream, my vision for our collective future is that resources are available freely and as needed. and that to access what you need and further what you desire is not an act of labor, but that
Hmm.
it is an act of love, right? Um, and, I'm thinking about this as always in very practical ways. Um, when I say resource generation, I'm speaking like very tactically as the artistic director of a dance collective and, doing earned income teaching classes and workshops and things like that. And also uh, doing individual donor asks and also writing grants, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But the truth of the matter is, if the people who have resources just shift the resources to the people that need the resources because they love them, especially when the people that need those resources are um, have any number of marginalized identities, are working in systems of oppression, like just the radical undoing, the radical healing that could happen if we did not have to work so hard, labor so hard to access. Now, I'm not even going to say what we need, but what we desire.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that I
Mm.
and it truly is a collective vision because it requires us to release the individuality of, well, you got to do this and you need to do that and da 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 da, and it embraces that collectively we all have what we need.
Right.
And collectively, we've decided to love each other in a way to make sure that we have what each other needs, right? And so, in the present moment, that is completely an active practice in the family and company and friends that I keep.
Mm-hmm.
But I need it to extend beyond my intimate circles.
Mm.
I need it to extend into a general cultural practice, a general way of life that is without question. And it seems so simple, and yet it is so difficult. And um, yeah, that it's an undoing that I really pray for.
Mm. I'm taking notes. That's why I'm looking
I
down.
know, I
So
know
you're so
you are.
right.
I
I'm
do too. I got
completely
a notebook.
um, I hear you. I
Mhm.
hear you. I'm curious in in your long experience now of stewarding work, creative work, collective creative work. Have you seen glimpses, glimmers, examples, experienced moments where this sort of love in action that you're describing, this redistribution of resources that are hoarded and the false scarcity that these systems create, have you seen that directly being addressed? Have you seen it manifesting even in small ways in your experience thus far?
Yes, and specifically in this last year,
Mm,
in the COVID pandemic
mm,
times. Um, I can think of a few different examples. One is last year with the grant cycle, and most of the funders who I had written a grant for, they came back and said, your project wasn't selected, but in acknowledgement of these times, here's $200, $300, $400, $500 in acknowledgement of the labor that it took for you to even submit this grant. Why y'all just doing that now? Because it's been laborious for me to write these grants, you know. Another thing is at the beginning, literally this time last year, at the beginning of the shutdown, I was in fact dead broke, $0 in my bank account. And people, when I say people reached out and just sent me what I needed, I had one friend who, you know, is one of my dearest friends from our college days. She just sent me the rent for my apartment just for a whole month, and New York rent ain't cheap. You know, I was really, really grateful to receive, you know, small tokens here and there, you know, enough to cover groceries, da, 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 da. But for somebody to straight up send you the rent, I was broken in tears for the act of love and the act of generosity and the like, I got you, boo. The end, you know? And then the third example I'm thinking about is one of my really good friends who is a neighbor in Harlem, and she has been running community fridge mutual aid efforts. And so rescuing food from neighborhood restaurants, from you know, local farms, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then not only making sure that food gets distributed to the community fridge that's next door to her home, but throughout Harlem, Upper West Side, Bronx. Like, she's literally like, I kind of joke. I was like, you the Rick Ross of food in Harlem. Like, it's just, she's making sure that people can eat. And it's, the food is free, whatever you need, you know. I go down there just to like bring her some reusable shopping bags or whatever, and she send me home with food, right? And don't matter if I already got, here, I know you're gonna eat it, I know you're gonna make good use of it, right? And so it, out of love, that's generosity and love. It's not generosity, it's just love. I'm not even gonna say generosity because I think sometimes generosity implies that you didn't have to do it, or like that you it's not necessary for you to do it. And I feel like if you really love somebody, if you love your people, if you love whatever the thing is, that it's built in, right? Like, of course I'm going to do this for you. Of course I'm going to make sure you got food and a place to sleep and da 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 da. And I want to make sure that you can, you know, rest as you need to, and have space to dream as you need to, et cetera, et cetera. It is, yeah, I these are the things that I think about in the middle of the night and have been thinking about for a really long time, and in a lot of ways am very privileged to think about, because I have been able to carve out a space and a way of living for myself that it's very self-directed. You know, I'm self-employed, I don't have a boss, and I have made certain choices to basically live a very sparing life. I also am not responsible for any other humans other than myself. You know, I don't have kids. My parents can take care of themselves, et cetera, et cetera. And so I don't have to get a job, right? And that leaves me in a space of being able to make choices that are truly rooted in who I am and what I need, and in a self-determined way. And I know that a lot of Black folk, most Black folks, don't have that privilege. They really don't. And I don't take that for granted. And I don't take for granted that the people I'm connected to make it possible for me to live this life.
Yes.
You know? Yeah, I feel like that was a
No, that's great. That's
word.
exactly. I'm into the tangible example. So, and I think the other thing that I'm learning in the conversations that I've had thus far with all the beautiful people who have come and dreamt with me out loud is that the everyday practices of making the worlds we want to live in are very essential and important. And while I know there are pitfalls to intentional, solely incrementalist efforts to shift things on a grand scale, the scale at which they do need to shift, that it is not to the demeaning of the everyday things that people do to make their dreams realities, right? And it's the accumulation of all of those small things that creates these larger shifts. It's not just the things that we see that are visible, tangible, evidence, advertised, whatever, right? That so I really want to honor the everydayness, the mundane inside of these conversations about dreaming and visioning, because I think we are doing this. We wouldn't be here if we weren't in the practice of dreaming, and if those who came before us weren't, we wouldn't be here. So I'm calling this everyday futurism in my reflections around all of the beauty that people have shared on this show, but I think it's really important. I think the community fridge is important. I think honoring the individual acts of mutual aid that enable people to remain housed is absolutely essential. And I don't want to romanticize this pandemic in any way, but part of my around people rushing to the horizon of normalcy is I also don't want us to forget the gifts that this time has brought. I think there is this thing where it's like, I just want to forget 2020, and 2020 plus happened, right? I want to leave that all behind, and I want to get back to my life. I want to get back to what I thought I was going to do. I want to get back to my plan. And that is not the ministry of this time. That is not the spiritual lesson of this time. The spiritual lesson of this time is that shit was not working. It was not working. Sonia Renee Taylor wrote about this so beautifully, right? There's no allure to going back to the normal. It was a violent, terrible system that this virus is a product of. The virus is a symptom of a larger dis-ease that is global and that the United States is a heat center of, right? And if we don't learn the lesson, it will come back until we get it, right? Going back to my grandfather's wisdom, learning is a change in behavior. We ain't learning shit. If that's what we're talking about, yes, we're wearing masks more often, sure, right? But we have not done the larger societal transformation. And yes, like this is hundreds of years, of thousands of years of patriarchy. Like, we are deep in some shit. And the behavior changes have to start happening around transforming into societies that are centered on care, which is what you are holding up to me. If the central thing that we are concerned with is how do we care for ourselves and each other, then I think we'd have different relationships to dance classes right now.
Come on.
If the central question was how do we care for ourselves and each other, we would have a fundamentally different political system, right? The fact is we don't care. And I think that's very real. Like I'm not trying to be flippant or whatever. Like it's obvious that we don't care about each other. That's one thing that's been revealed. I don't know if we had to learn that, but that's been very present. And like what I hear you talking about is beloved community. What I hear you talking about, and these are my words based on what you're saying, is moving with a felt sense of abundance, knowing in our bodies, in our felt truths and experiences that we have everything that we need, and everything that we need is in our communities, right? It's about people doing the work of transforming the positions of power that they have in this moment to say, like, we're gonna, yeah, I'm still at this gate that I'm keeping still exists. I'm going to make changes to how I do that right now until we tear down the gates. So I'm all in for like the multiple strategies, because we're all still surviving capitalism. Let's not be like Pollyanna-ish about that. Like, we're all trying to figure out how we're going to survive, because most of us still need money to do that. Let's not try to pretend like we don't. And if care is the center, I think we will behave differently. And that is not what people are moving toward on the horizon. They want to get back to doing whatever they want, whenever they want, buying whatever they want, right? And that's not the spiritual lesson. And as a person for whom spiritual lessons will not go away and will show up in my body very, very presently, so that I have to get it.
Mm-hmm.
We are in a pain body collectively right now. And a pain body requires immense presence. And if you don't pay attention to and attend to the pain, you are going to further injure yourself, and the pain will not go away. And that is what I see us collectively doing. We are just continuing to injure ourselves and injure ourselves. Our collective body is being torn asunder, more so than it already was.
Mm-hmm.
And we will not be able to recover. You know that as a mover and performer. If you got an injury and you're just like, I'm going to just power through this shit, I'm going to just take painkillers, I'm going to pretend it doesn't go away, I'm going to smoke a lot of weed before this performance, I'm going to like put on this brace that only works if I dance for 2 minutes, anything more than 2 minutes ain't going to work. You ain't going to be able to dance past 30, boo. You're not going to be able to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Not in the ways that you intend to. And this is very ableist in some respects. But thinking about whatever abilities our bodies have, if we don't tend to what hurts, we will be less able, which is not necessarily a bad state, but it means that we have not been full of care with ourselves. I'm done. I'm preaching. I'm gonna stop. Stopping.
I love it. I mean, if there was a comment, woo, it's the comment, okay? Also want to acknowledge what I like to call my full-bodied agreement. When I get to rocking and like, it's like in my soul, I feel you. And you just made, I just wrote down a few things. You were talking about the US being the heat center of the dysfunction. And it immediately, what popped in my mind is the world maps of COVID infection and US soil being bright red in comparison to the rest of the world.
Yes.
Literal heat center.
Yes, Lord, yes.
Of dysfunction and disease. And then this, when you were saying, talking about people want to get back, we got to get forward. And like getting forward is like, I'm like, that's what we need. I just want to like, that phrase I want to drop into my lexicon, right? Like, how do we get forward? How do we get forward? There's no normal, but how do we get forward? What are the practices that we have uncovered in these COVID times that will get us forward? And we've already started naming some of them. And then just to also affirm the both and strategy, both the incremental and the systemic. And really figuring out how to work in coalition, right? So how do we enact this everyday futurism, and how are we in right relationship with people who have power to make institutional changes? Or really, how are the people in power in right relationship with us to make institutional changes? Uh,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
yeah.
I have to take a bathroom break. I've never done this during a show, but I
Okay,
need to do that.
great.
I'm gonna take care of my body.
I love it.
I'm gonna ask you a question.
Okay.
You are in the practice of institution building, I would say. You've worked for many an institution. I would call SLMDances in its own way an institution.
Correct.
It's
Mm-hmm.
my projection. But you're building a thing
Mm-hmm.
that is doing work in the world that is collective work. So I
Mm-hmm.
would love for you to speak on what does it mean to build a liberated, futuristic institution? How does that work for you? What does that look like in practice? What are you wrestling with? And I will be right back.
Okay. Ooh, that's such a good question. What does it mean to be building a liberated institution? I think that um, it is it is a different kind of labor than people are used to. I know that it is a different kind of labor that people are used to. So, for context, SLMDances is a dance theater collective made up, it's a multiracial collective, but our focus is on creating dance theater works that tell the stories of Black women and femmes. And we had to shift a few years ago. The first thing, our language from the existing model of dance company, founder led dance company, to collective. And we had to shift our language of what the role and the title of the artist who worked with us, um, what that title is. So they're not dancer, they're not just artists. We call them creative partners. And we went through a process of collectively defining what partnership means, what collaboration means. And this is important because um, in order to make that organizational transition from company to collective, from dancer just doing steps that a choreographer gives to creative partner who is invested in the whole health of the organization and building the whole health of an organization, we had to really take a deep dive and understand what it you know what liberation means, what liberation means, and what definitions of success are for each individual human, and how they were willing to contribute to building that space. And so I think one of the biggest difficulties when artists do come into SLMDances is making that brain shift from, okay, I've been hired to do a job, and this person is just going to pay me to do this job, and then I'm going to collect my things and go home, to a space where we're asking you, no, bring your things and make this your home. And you have the space to name and identify what you need in this space to work towards your individual liberation. And we're asking you to hold what you need for your individual liberation in tension with what the collective liberation looks like. And that has been a, a different type of labor, and just onboarding people into that space has been that I think that has been some of where our struggle, a lot of where our struggle is, because some people are not up for it. Some people are not. They're like, I just want to do something that's fun, or I just want to collect my check, or I just want that. And then I'm gonna go do my thing over here, and to change your mindset that the space that is where you do your dancing, and so perhaps is your where you are doing your work in the world, is also um, a political home, and it is also a home. It is a home to redefine and to self-determine yourself. So, and I think that when people aren't ready for that, they like ping back real quick. You know, like we almost come to expect that in a cycle of onboarding new artists, that at the halfway point of their first year, where there's going to be attrition of at least 2 people, because they're not ready. They're not ready to deal with and to do the self work, quite frankly, that it takes to show up for a collective that is living in this space of everyday futurism, of getting forward, of doing both the incremental and the systemic, centering care, all these things that we've talked about.
Thank you. Yeah. I'm hearing this important theme of shifting from a transactional job to a, if you will, transformative partnership.
I will. I will.
Okay.
And I might quote you on that.
Yes.
We'll put up a job call soon.
But that I think that really resonates with me too, in terms of some things I'm observing organizationally, in our arts and cultural field. And what that has to do with love, what it requires. Love requires presence. And I wanna like trouble this, like you made a distinction earlier between labor and love. And I wonder, like, whenever I feel like something is a binary or like where something is thing, I always like draw little arrows and like, what's the relationship between these things? So, you know, I'm like, okay. I am of a practice, I'd say, of thinking about, feeling about, being about love as requiring a kind of labor. But I think part of what I'm sensing as you talked more about it is that there's a qualitative difference, perhaps. And I've been thinking a lot about this in the quarantine time, in the pandemic land, in the panty. You know, I love saying, oh, Black people. It's so good. But I think that what I'm observing is a return to a sense of love as stewardship and this labor of the cyclical. So there are many a feminist and Black feminist scholar who have written about this in various ways. And I'm grateful for the ongoing intelligence and visionary futuristic grounding of Black feminism. The lesson for me in this is that we have gendered labor. Labor is gendered. And the labor of the domestic space is feminine in its gendering under patriarchy. And in that living in the home space that we have all been doing, there is a way in which we have all been gendered inside of this sickness collectively that we are in, right? And that the sick body is a gendered body. It is a feminine gendered body. This is all other people's brilliance that I am just synthesizing right now. Let me tell you, not Joanna Hedva. Thank you, Audre Lorde. Thank you. Like, there are many a feminist that I'm drawing from right now. But this idea that the body that is less able under patriarchy to be well, which in Joanna Hedva's language, sick woman theory, which I'm super into still, is a female bodied. It's a feminine body. It's a gendered woman body. Is all of our bodies when we have a pandemic. We are all sick women, right? And that the able body is the masculine body. It is the body that is able to labor under a capitalist system to create value that can be bought and sold in a marketplace. And we are all experiencing, even if we are not sick with COVID, sickness in that our bodies are not able to do the things we want them to do because we are restricted. And this to me is where like Arundhati Roy's "The Pandemic is a Portal" is powerful. We are seeing and feeling and experiencing so clearly the ways that sexism and misogyny and ableism and racism and all the colonialism intersect in our culture right now because we are so sick, and we can all see, feel, and experience what that means. And in a perfect world, we would all be like, empathy bomb. Whoa, the inside of me is blown open in a very positive way, and I am feeling the ways in which I have been participating in a community that's not about care.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know how to start talking about that. Sydnie, you got me preaching today. What you doing?
Because it's so good. Okay. So this leads me to my next practical
Come on.
that I'm in right now, which is trying to schedule my work life around my menstrual cycle.
Girl, come tell me all about this, please.
Right?
Yes, I want to know about this.
Okay, so this is not independent genius either. This seed has been planted by many people, but to lean into the space of when my cycle is on, I am tired. I do not have energy to do things. So why am I trying to do things, right? So thinking about how do I plan my time, my meetings, my time with family and friends, et cetera, when my body actually wants to be in that space. And leaning into the ways that my body is already knows when I'm going to have the energy to do a certain type of engagement or labor, and when it needs to have the rest, have the space for reflection and evaluation, et cetera, et cetera. And so I'm like trying to untrain myself from the like push to just go no matter what. And then when I'm having an off day, that I'm even calling it an off day. Actually, my body is just doing what it's supposed to do today. And my mental space is not caught up to what my body already knows needs to be done, which is lay your ass down on the couch and watch Netflix. And so I have not mastered this at all. This is like my current self-work thing that I'm doing right now. But I've spent the last 2 months really trying to like unpack that. Yes. And what that might mean. Also, coincidentally, last night I was reading through some old blog posts, and I wrote this thing, and I just want to say it out loud because I was like, oh my God, I did it. Yes. It is a dream that I had in 2014. And I wrote, for myself, I pray for a life where I have the space to fall apart and put myself back together again in my own time. And I was like, oh, that's what 2020 was for me. That's what 2019 to 2021, quite frankly, has been for me. To fall apart, completely, broke down in all the ways, and to take as much time as I needed to be intentional about putting myself back together again and finding a way forward, you know? And it all of these things are very connected to now I got to look up the sick woman theory. I'm like, how?
It's so good. I'll send you a link. I'll put the link in the show notes.
Y'all know I've been hollering about this. Give me the theory. Give me the text. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm so glad you're in this space. And I know we've talked about, like, we really connected around sickness and how that has shifted our relationship to work. Like it was actually at that talk, at the Sick Woman Theory talk that I was invited to by my friend Laurel. I was in Cali visiting my family, have this, once a year time to see my friend. And she was like, let's go to this talk. I was like, girl, I don't want to go to no damn talk. I just want to hang out. And she was like, I really want to go to this talk. And I was like, okay, let's go. Mm-hmm. All right, let's go. And it was amazing. And we were both blown away. And at the beginning of the talk, and I'll send you the video because it's a really nice thing to hear her say aloud, is there was an invitation for everyone in the audience. We were gathered in some sort of warehouse space to put a pebble in your shoe if you are not a person who has a chronic illness, and to then put another pebble in your shoe. And there are people kind of passing around these buckets with pebbles in them if you are a person who is not experiencing some intersection of oppressions in this society, right? So basically, if you're a white, straight man, money, you don't put pebble in your shoe, right? And so there was this process of deciding if you were going to pull a stone from this bucket. And the invitation was to sit with the discomfort of the pebble in your shoe, as people with chronic illness, or as, a woman of color must do all the time in this society. And I pulled a pebble out for being chronically ill, which was, for me, this very big deal. Very big deal. First time ever I'd really identified with that in any way. And it was very life-changing, the talk, but also the act that I was invited to do. And it's really changed my life and perspective around labor, particularly in institutional organizational settings. And what I'll say is that now, as a person who is partnering as a practice in my money work, mostly with arts and cultural entities, nonprofit and philanthropic, I'm just like, why are we rushing? I don't rush. I just tell people, I was like, if you rush, if this timeline is rushed, I won't work on this project. And I'm grateful that I have the financial stability at this time to be able to say no to things. But I'm like, no, I won't. I don't do work with rushed timeframes. I just don't. I also, if I'm in charge of setting a timeline, if we could get this work done in 8 weeks, I'm going to budget for 12 or more. I add like a 35 to 40% time cushion to every project timeline, because shit ain't going to go right. Mm-hmm. And I'm not going to be stressed for no fucking reason. That could be avoided. I'm not going to do it. For what? For who? For what purpose? I feel like Eartha Kitt in that interview about compromise. Compromise for what? Mm-hmm. I'm very clear. I don't rush. If you're a person who like boom, 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 let's do like 7 million things, that's just fucking white supremacist, patriarchal, colonial conditioning. And I'm not interested in it. I'm not interested in it. And a lot of the people who do that have a lot of class privilege. It's not that deep. It's about power. It's about access. And yes, we live under capitalist precarity, but a lot of y'all, it ain't that precarious. You just caught up in the habit of feeling affirmed and legitimized inside of white supremacist, colonial, capitalist, sexist, patriarchal spaces. Fuck that. I don't do that shit no more. I refuse. I will not partner with you if that's how you flow. That's not about liberation. That's something else. Yeah. That's bullshit. And I'm not doing that. It's sick. It's unhealthy. So I'm just See, I knew this was gonna be a session where it was just like,
it's so good. It's so good.
this
And
how I talk, y'all. This is how, if it's really real, this is how it goes. That's why I love Sydnie.
oh God.
We're always in church.
My full-bodied agreement is very real. But I also want to name like the ways that even like I'm still undoing
Me
the,
too.
like I don't rush, but when I'm ready to get it done, I'm ready to get it done. And then I get frustrated when other people are not on my time thing. And so there's a tension there, and I think about how I still have a very bad habit of under budgeting time to get things done. And I think kind of a train of thought that really is in like the freelancers working Bible is, to under promise and over deliver. And I still ain't got there yet. I over promise and over deliver. And still working through what it looks like to make that additional 35 to 40% time budget.
And still get paid for it.
And still get paid for it. And get paid well for it.
Mm-hmm.
And to not be afraid to ask for more. Like you don't have to accept the first offer. You don't have to accept the first negotiated offer. You can still negotiate. And that is about, again, communication and being in relationship and being, like literally just this morning, I had a thought about something that I've agreed to engage in. And I was like, you know what? I need to bring on somebody else. I wonder if they got some more money so I can bring on this person.
Absolutely.
All right, well, let me go back and talk to them.
Absolutely.
And knowing A, that we can do that, and then B, just being in the regular practice of doing that. And that just feels really important to name as a tool. Yeah.
Yes. Mm-hmm. We're going to end on that note. The practice of asking for what you need. Absolutely. I feel like that. Hi, Caitlin Riley, affirmative, like overly. Do you know this person on Instagram? No. She's hilarious. Oh my gosh. She's got this video that's exactly what I'm doing, which is being like extremely affirming as a listener. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. Yes. She's great at it. I'll send it to you as well. Okay. Sydnie, thank you so much. I want to give you an opportunity to tell folks how they can support SLMDances at this time.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So we are actually right in the midst of a wonderful fundraising campaign. We are celebrating the Black women who have made it possible to do the work that we do. And so our ask is simple. Go to slmdances.com. and you will see a little pop-up and you can give money to our campaign. We're trying to raise $5,000 and really by this weekend. And the ask is two-pronged. Whatever you give to us, match it and give to one of the Black women who has made our work possible. So we believe in abundance. We believe that if you have $20 for us, you also have $20 for one of our big sisters or aunties that have really blessed us and made us, here doing what we do. So, yeah.
Yes. Yes. Please support Black women's work. Pay Black women. Love on Black women, monetarily and otherwise. All the things. Give them all the things. Ashe.
Yeah. Ashe.
Sydnie, thank you so much for giving me your time, sharing this space. It's been a pleasure. I'm so excited that the next episode is going to be with the brilliant and ever fabulous Sage Crump. Yes. We're going to keep this dream train moving on into the spring and stay tuned for some very exciting updates on what's to come with What's the Big Idea in the fall. I won't tell you now. I'll keep you in suspense. Peace, everyone. Be full of care with yourselves and with those in your communities. That is the revolution. Ashe, and until next time, 2 weeks from now. Peace.
Bye.